Yeah.
Okay, terrific. So a little history as to how we got this program. Our friend Kathleen Macbeth, her sister and brother-in-law, had a clam shop, which they recently sold. So her brother-in-law in particular was very involved with the Great South Bay. And Kathleen and I were talking one day, and we came, around to the fact that we'd love to do something. And her brother-in-law knew about Save the Great South Bay. So, Robyn, we got your contact information through him. So I went looking on the internet to find out who Robyn is because I didn't know her. She has been involved in public service all her life, lived in Europe for over a decade, and has her degree in international relations from Webster University in Vienna. She was the chairperson of Babylon Village Volunteer Corps and the past president of the local PTA. And there's a lot of other things which I'm not going to go into. So we'll hand it over to you, Robyn, okay?
Thank you, Sister Margaret, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Robyn Silvestri, and I'm the executive director at Save the Great South Bay. But first and foremost, I'm a mother of four of children who were raised out on the Great South Bay. We are boaters, paddle boarders, kayakers. Um, we love to play beach volleyball. We raised our family really out on the water, and that brought me to the Save the Great South Bay organization. This organization was founded back in 2013 as in response to the worsening water quality out on the Great South Bay. Two Sayville residents had come back for a reunion and were just horrified that the water had gone from this crystal clear water that everybody knew to this murky brown mess that was smelly and just not appetizing to recreate on. So they wanted to know, what was happening and what we could do as Long Islanders to help fix it. So those are the origins of the organization. And as I said, so the Great South Bay is facing an ecological disaster. We have over 380,000 outdated cesspools in Suffolk County alone. 360,000 are residences and 20,000 are businesses. Um, all of these cesspools leach nitrogen into the ground. They're just basically holes in the ground. You flush your toilet, the waste goes in, nitrogen leaches into the groundwater, and the groundwater makes its way towards the Great South Bay. That, and in addition to that, the chemical-laden fertilizers that we use on our lawns and pesticides contribute about 20% of the problem is attributed to fertilizers. All of this nitrogen overload triggers what's called algal blooms in the bay. We know them better as brown tide, red tide, mahogany tide. And basically what that is like a flowering surface cover that blocks off the light, and the light's the life source for all the marine life that lives underwater. They all need that oxygen that comes from the sunlight. So to the right here is a map of some of the environmental events that happened out on the Great South Bay in the summer of 2023. Every October, including this October, we have Dr. Christopher Gobler come down. He comes down to our speaker series at the View in Oakdale. You're all invited to attend this October. And he presents to us the state of the bay. What were the environmental factors that influenced the water quality in the Great South Bay over the past season? And what he finds year after year and worsening is the lack of oxygen for marine life, shellfish poisonings, and more recently, an invasive Japanese seaweed that's affecting water quality out in the Great South Bay. So how does that affect us? Who cares about water quality in the Great South Bay? Well, as Long Island residents, it's super important to us. It means beach closures when the bacteria counts are up, fishing off limits in many areas. We find fish kills have happened over the past few years where we'll get hundreds of thousands, millions of fish wash up on shore that are dead from lack of oxygen. We get smelly, gross water. There are no clams left in the Great South Bay. And this, also affects on the financial side, the home values and the values of businesses, marine businesses that are on the water, restaurants, marinas, the tourism industry over to Fire Island. It has a big, no pun intended, but a big ripple effect on Long Island economies and our way of life. We live on an island. We are surrounded by water, and water quality has to be the topmost of our priority list as Long Island residents. So our mission as an organization is to restore and protect water quality in the Great South Bay. And we used to say for future generations to enjoy, but our board has said, hey, we want to see change in our own lifetimes. Of course, we're here for our grandkids, but we want to see a healthier bay now. What do we need to do to improve water quality now? And this is, it's been 50, 70 years in the making since Levitt started to first put in, the first home developments and Long Island really started to develop. So it's not an overnight solution that's going to happen. It's going to take years, but we have to start now. And even if we see just a minor improvement in our own lifetimes, the efforts have to start somewhere. So what do we do as an organization? We work in 4 key areas. We have a program called the Creek Defender Program. Oh, I wish I had my map. I don't have my map in this slideshow. There's a map that I could show you that has between Massapequa and Mastic Beach. And there are 50 creeks between Massapequa and Mastic Beach. You may know some of them in your own backyard. Ketchum's, the Naguntatog over in Lindenhurst, the Carls River, the Carmen's River, the Connecticut River. These are all tributaries that provide fresh water into the Great South Bay. And our creek defenders are appointed in each town. We actually work with Mayor Siri in Amityville as our creek defender, and they go out and they patrol the local creeks and identify where creeks are blocked or clogged or have a significant amount of debris. And then they rally their local communities, get the kids out, the scouts, the Rotary clubs, volunteers of all ages to come down and help clean out the creeks. So in this year alone, this program usually happens in March and April before it gets too green out and before the hatching season. This year alone, we conducted 17 cleanups involving over 640 volunteers, and they picked out over 13,000 pounds of debris from the creeks and the creek beds. We track it using an app that allows us to collect data on what we're picking up. And, we pick up tens of dozens of tires, shopping carts, plastic of all shapes and kinds. It's really crazy what we pick up, and we do it on an annual basis. And in some creeks, it's getting better, but there's just always more. It's crazy. In addition to that, we run the Great South Bay Oyster Project. We are big proponents of putting oysters back into the bay. Oysters can filter up to 50 gallons of water each, which makes them a significant superhero. We call them for water filtration out on the bay. The more oysters we can get back in the bay, the better our water quality will be. At one point, the water quality, so the water was filtered in a matter of days out in the Great South Bay with the clam and oyster populations that we had. Now it could be months for that same amount of water to be filtered. We also started this year to create we'll lay the foundation in order for us to create a report card. So every year when Dr. Gobler comes to us and he presents all his scientific data, we go to him and say, hey, it's really great that these 100 people can have their hands held and get to know what the science means. But we need an educational tool. We need to break your science down into a way that everyday people can understand it on a mass scale. So we are laying the foundation to create conduct water quality monitoring, to create a letter grade report card that will say this area of the bay is graded as an A. It receives a lot of flush from the ocean, has great water quality, where maybe over by the Connecticut River, where it's surrounded by cesspools, might not get such a great grade. And then we conduct advocacy and education, which we're going to go into now. of some of the ways that residents themselves can get involved directly in helping us restore water quality in the Bay. So just quickly who we are, we're about 27,500 followers strong across our social media platforms. We have volunteers of all ages, from kids who come out to conduct cleanups and help us maintain our oyster gardens, to seniors who are out, in their retirement looking for some activities to do in the community. I talked about some of the things that we've done. So I'd like to now jump into our slides on Bay-friendly yards. And this is an education program that we run to help people understand how they can start where they stand in their own yards. It's a little overwhelming, and it was for me even when I came to this organization to think, oh my God, how are we going to save the Bay? But when you break it down into things that people can do in their own yards, it allows people to feel vested and empowers them to participate in this process. And it is a process that's going to take all of us. So what is a bay-friendly yard? A bay-friendly yard is a way for us to reduce nitrogen. And nitrogen is the #1 culprit affecting the water quality in the Great South Bay. And what happens on lawns is you get a lot of fertilizer, and people love their green lawns. And these green lawns do not exist in a vacuum. They need a lot of fertilizer to maintain them. That fertilizer is laden with nitrogen, which is what makes your lawn green. And that nitrogen, when it's applied, particularly in the rainy seasons, in the spring, when it's typically applied, the rain comes and washes off the excess nitrogen into the streets. All the water goes to the storm drains. The storm drains lead directly into the Bay. So just to touch back a little bit, prior to 1900, Long Island was largely farmland and like a lot of wildlife and abundant shellfishing. And then in the early part of the 19th century, the development started to come, and they really came. Each house came with 2 trees and a cesspool, and we see them all over the place now. I grew up in one myself in Medford, right? In 11 houses in a neighborhood exactly like this. We're all very familiar with them. And we added to this then, of course, the infrastructure that's needed to support those developments, malls, parking lots, highways. And a lot of development was done without any or much consideration given to the environmental impact it was having on our local wildlife and our waterways. So the result of this was thousands of acres of natural habitat were replaced with turf lawn. Your lawn is literally, I was guilty of it myself. My lawn was like a cement block. It was not pliable and was not absorbing anything. It really was like hard as a rock. Sorry, I just wanted to mention here too that we removed a lot of native species and replaced them with things that are pretty, but don't really serve much environmental purpose. Japanese maples are a favorite. You see them all over the place, but our local birds and bees don't recognize the Japanese maple. So while it serves an ornamental purpose, it doesn't serve really any environmental purpose. Also, native plants grow deeper roots because they're adapted over millions of years from being here. They grow deeper roots, which helps absorb the stormwater and keeps it in place on the ground. Oh, so we said this part really bugs us because bugs are the cornerstone of everything, and we've destroyed a lot of their homes and landing pads. So we can't live without bugs, and while they're not directly related to water quality, we need bugs too. And part of the Bay-friendly yards is restoring wildlife habitat for our pollinators. So there's 3 elements to creating a Bay-friendly yard. It's habitat restoration, stormwater management, and then local stewardship or eco-friendly maintenance. Why do we want to restore habitat? Because it's good for our native plants. And like I said, native plants are adapted to our local ecosystems. They help assimilate nitrogen through their deeper roots. So here are some examples of things that you can plant. So instead of the burning bush, I had one. An alternative, which gives you that same red color, would be red chokeberry. That's a native plant with berries that the birds love to eat up. Instead of planting the traditional falcon grass, big blue stem gives the same visual effect, but is a native grass, so well adapted to the Long Island landscape. Instead of calorie pear, dogwood gives you that same white flower, but is a native tree. So it serves as a home to over 400 species of caterpillar. Well, that's oaks, so maybe a little bit less for dogwoods, but they also, calorie pear is not recognized nearly at all by our local wildlife. Instead of a pretty pink, go for an orange with milkweed, great for butterflies. A second part of habitat restoration is removing invasives. So invasive species are a little bit worse than ornamental species because ornamental species, while they don't provide any ecological value, they don't also do any harm. And invasive species, on the other hand, can cause harm by choking out the native plants. In the case of English ivy, they literally can choke out a plant, but they are invasive. They don't have any natural enemies here locally, and so they grow without guards. English ivy, garlic mustard, wisteria, they crowd out the species that we do need to have here because they don't have any natural enemies. So one of the ways that you can conduct habitat restoration is by simply replacing the ornamentals. Skip the laurels and which might as well be statues, and find some equally stunning native alternatives. More and more nurseries are starting to cater to the native plant market, which is very heartening for us. When we first started about 7 years ago, there was nobody out there. There was one place in Eastport called Long Island Natives, which is an amazing resource, but pretty far for most people. Now we have in Ronkonkoma KMS Natives. She's got a great supply, a great retailer for native plants. And over in Bayport, Bayport Flower House. It's a great resource. Those are places where you can find plants that support a large number of local species and provide ecological function as well. Another way to contribute through habitat restoration is simply reducing the amount of lawn, cutting back the lawn and, not eliminating it. We know people like their lawns, but just adding a little border of a native landscape. And here are some resources. I could gladly share these with you. They're the National Wildlife Federation's Native Plant Finder, where you type in your zip code. If you just put in Native Plant Finder, it will take you right to this site. You add in your zip code, and it gives you lists of trees, plants, bushes, grasses, and it ranks them by their environmental value in terms of butterflies. So you'll see that the oak tree is like the top rated tree. If you're going to plant one tree, plant the oak tree, because it's the home to the largest number of caterpillars. So you get your bang for your buck by planting the plants with the most value. So next up is the second part of essential elements is stormwater management. When it rains, it picks up the nitrogen from fertilizers, roadway debris, and this all makes its way into those storm drains that are all over our neighborhoods. And those storm drains drain directly to the bay with no filtration. One way to keep stormwater on your property besides planting native plants is to create something like this. It's called a bioswale. And it's basically a ditch that you dig out and align with rocks in order to capture water on site. and the water has then time to absorb it into the ground underneath instead of rushing off into the street.
Hmm.
Let me see if my link works. Let's see. Here's an example of a bioswale out in Sayville in action after a major rainstorm. And this is normally just like a dry creek bed. Okay, this guy's a little excessive in his storm in the creation of his bioswale, but he also lives about 3 houses off the bay and is very prone to flooding. So he installed quite a large bioswale and native garden here in order to retain stormwater on the property. Let me just get back to my. Another way you could retain stormwater on your property is using rain barrels. Then you reuse the water out of the rain barrels to reduce, reuse, recycle, and water your plants. Rain gardens are another way. Again, they have the capacity to absorb additional water, which will stay on site. And not to be worried about mosquitoes, the water won't stay there very long. It is simply meant to be a catch basin, so the water has time to absorb before running off. And the third pillar of Bay-Friendly Yard is local stewardship, because every patch of lawn counts. If you could imagine if I'm just going to use Babylon Village as an example because I know the house numbers. If the 4,000 homes in Babylon Village each implemented 1, 2, or maybe even all 3 of these pillars, the impact of one may not be great, but the impact of many is cumulative. So what ways can you be a local steward? Don't use fertilizers or pesticides, or use low nitrogen ones. We don't even like to say that. We just want to say eliminate fertilizers altogether because they are really no good for the environment. Mow less, let your lawn grow a little bit longer so you don't mow as often, and use the clippings as mulch. In the fall, you can leave the leaves and use them as natural mulch in your beds. That also provides habitat. You'll find all kinds of creatures living in the leaves, including salamanders. Keep an eye out for invasives. Even once you remove them, they tend to try and come back. So if you remove the invasives, just keep an eye out for them. And that, I guess, is the end of my presentation. So thank you very much. Those are the 3 essential elements of a bay-friendly yard. They represent ways that each individual could get started, or as I understand from the sister, that you have your own garden on your property, and it might be some techniques that you would like to implement on your own space. They're certainly not limited to residential lawns. We work closely with many developers who want their properties to be more eco-friendly, but just aren't sure how to go about it. So the same tenets apply to residential as well as to commercial properties. So I am open for questions, comments. Love to hear what you thought.
I have a question. So can you go back to the rain garden slide, and how is a rain garden different than a regular garden?
Well, as you can see, this rain garden has a little, I don't want to call it, it's like a ditch.
Oh, a little ditch.
Built into it. And it's really a patch of an area that has all native plants in it. It doesn't necessarily have to have the ditch, but to be planted with native plants. If you have a little area, it doesn't have to be big. 10 by 10 is more than enough to help keep the stormwater on your property.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. I thought cesspools were eliminated.
We wish they were eliminated. I will tell you, come November, the legislature and it's been a work in progress. There's something called, well, the old name was the Sub-Watershed Wastewater Management Plan. And we told them that name is terrible. They have to come up with something that people can say. So they call it now the Clean Water Plan. And the Clean Water Plan was 10 years in the making. And it is a nationally recognized blueprint on how to reduce cesspools. There are 360,000 of them still in Suffolk County on residential and 20,000 in commercial properties. But this
Wow.
plan needs funding. And the funding for it's going to cost billions of dollars. And so in the fall, there is a referendum that will be on the ballot proposing a 1/8 of a penny increase in sales tax. So 1/8 of a penny, but that 1/8 of a penny will generate over the next 35 years, billions of dollars that we can use to update cesspools and expand the use of sewers across Suffolk County. So it's a pretty important referendum, and we are encouraging people to vote yes. We know nobody likes to hear sales tax increase, but it really is, it's a nominal amount, and it will provide a dedicated funding source for replacement of expansion of sewers and replacement of these outdated cesspools over time. And this will nitrogen from cesspools accounts for about 65% of the nitrogen pollution in the bay.
Wow.
So this will take time to implement, but the plan has a 35-year horizon.
I know growing up, I lived in Suffolk County, East Palmdale, and we had to stop using the cesspool. They
Mhm.
had to come in. We had to pay, my parents had to pay for a different hookup, not using the cesspool.
Yes.
Why aren't the other towns or the other locations having this, have the same issue?
No, it is a question of money, as these kinds of projects tend to be. To hook one house up to a sewer system costs about $120,000. And so while there are sewer expansion plans going on right now, so North Babylon just hooked up another 4,000 homes to sewers. And Mastic Beach is having so thousands of homes also in Mastic Beach are now getting hooked up. But there hasn't been capacity at our sewage plants. We recently extended the capacity at Bergen Point, so they're able to take more on. But now it's a question of building out those sewer lines, and
Oh,
that
okay.
takes money. That takes it's very costly.
Yeah. And the other thing was, you had mentioned on one, I don't remember which one it was under, but it was about not mowing or not raking the leaves. Do you have an issue with working with the towns on that? Because I know if you don't mow or you don't rake the leaves, they get annoyed.
Well, it's no, we haven't run into any issues with the towns. Look, we are not proponents for untidy properties. People don't want to live next door to a mess, right? Nobody does. And we're not talking like let your grass grow 3 feet tall. We're saying,
Right.
you know, maybe don't mow it to 4 inches, maybe let it grow to 6 inches or 7 inches and just mow a little bit less. And even with the leaves, I mean, you could leave them exactly where they are, but people tend to like a little bit tidier. What we're saying is don't put the leaves in a trash bag and then put it at the curb. You know, that's like throwing out gold.
Yes, I agree with that. That's the same thing with making your own mulch.
Yep.
You know, yeah, it's gonna be a little stinky, but in the long run, look what it's doing.
Yeah. So if no one else has any questions, I'd love to hear about what you are doing on your own property over in Amityville.
Robyn, I have a quick question
Oh,
for
yeah.
you. I did read where I think it was from New York State was it 10 million or 50 million for the oysters? Where they were going
Oh.
to expand the, or rehab. It's down in Islip on the bay.
Yes, the state of New York just granted town of Islip $10 million to
Yeah.
build a regional hatchery. And what
Wow.
a hatchery is where they grow, where they spawn. So basically where they mate, oysters and clams. So they grow the seed that is then used for the oyster farmers and restoration projects. So town of Islip has an existing hatchery, but it's very outdated. And we really, there's so many more restoration efforts happening. We're conducting the Great South Bay Oyster Project. Friends at Belport Bay have a project going on out east at the eastern end of the bay. New York State had this shellfish restoration program going. So there's a need for more seed, for more baby oysters and baby clams, basically. Yeah, so we're very excited for that.
Can any of that money be used to help clean the waters? I mean, I know because if you're planting seeds in dirty water.
The
that's not
shellfish
gonna work.
actually, we say, kind of as with a wink, but oysters eat murky water for lunch.
Okay, all right.
They do well in dirty water. That's and they're built to filter.
Okay. I wanted to ask though about the referendum in November.
Mhm.
Is that going to be on all of the ballots in all of the towns? And is it, how sometimes those referendums are worded so that you don't know what you're saying yes or no to? Is that going to be carefully monitored?
So the referendum is Suffolk County wide.
Mhm.
So every Suffolk County resident, eligible voter will be able to vote.
We just lost you.
Maybe her internet. Robin?
Vote on it. I'm sorry, am I still there?
Yep,
Robin?
Yeah, can you guys see me?
Okay.
Wait, can you
Yeah.
see me now?
yep.
I'm back. Okay. I have at the tip of my fingers the exact wording for the referendum, but we are out talking to all kinds of groups between now and November to explain to them what the referendum is about and why it's important to water quality.
There any kelp farming in the Great South Bay?
Yes, there is. I'm actually going to turn off my video to help improve my connection. There is kelp farming in the Great South Bay. Lucky 13's oyster farmer, Matt Welling, he does kelp. Kelp is a winter crop, and oysters are more of a summer crop. So when he's not growing his oysters, when they're hibernating for the winter, he's out there growing kelp. And kelp is another great environmental ecosystem hero. It absorbs nitrogen right out of the water. So yes, we'd love to see more kelp as a winter crop. Sometimes the baymen, particularly out east, they get upset when part of the bay bottom is being used for farming. But these are all important elements to restoring water quality in the bay. We've got to jumpstart it, and we've got to do whatever we can at this point.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work that you're doing. Do you have a big staff, Robin?
We are a volunteer-driven organization.
Mhm.
We rely on donations. We're as a 501c3 nonprofit, and the staff consists of myself, and I have a 10-hour per week assistant. Everybody else is a volunteer.
Uh-huh.
But if you met our volunteers, they're crazy dedicated.
Mhm.
They're passionate. They're out there. They amaze me. They go above and beyond, and they all feel so strongly connected to the bay. It's like we have to protect it. We have to be the voice of the bay. The bay hasn't had a voice for a very long time, and we're going to be that voice for the bay.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Great.
Yep.
I don't know about anybody else, but there's all kinds of ideas going around in my head about how we might be able to work with you. You asked a little bit about what's going on on the land in the grounds at Amityville. There's a couple of people on this call who are on the Earth Focus Committee, so feel free to jump in. But we did have an organic farm in Amityville on the grounds of the Mother House, which unfortunately had to close. The land is lying fallow right now, and there's a lot of work being done about how it will be used. The land is in a conservation easement, 7 acres, I believe. Am I correct, Kathleen? I think it's 7 acres that's in a conservation easement. There are bees on the property, our own honeybees that were connected with the farm, and we're continuing with the bees. And then we have a gentleman and his wife who are growing native plants around the edge of what used to be the farm. That's where we are right now. I mean, I'm not sure where the plan is. You know, it's an agricultural easement for those 7 acres, so there can be no housing or anything built on it. But exactly how we're going to use that property, you know, I'm not sure yet. But that's what I was thinking. I'd love to have you come and talk to some of the powers that be and see if we can't get some volunteers to put in some of those rain gardens and what was that other word, swales that you mentioned?
Bioswales, yeah.
Because
That's a great idea.
it could be really done very beautifully and enhance the beauty of the land at the same time as, you know, help.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you about that. That would be it could be a really great, like a keystone project for others to model, like a model project that others could come visit and be inspired by.
Wow.
We have
Okay.
2 native gardens, one in Babylon, and one out in Mastic Beach. They're smaller. They're like, well, one's a little bit of a forest, and then there's a butterfly garden. And then the one out in Mastic Beach is maybe about 20 by 30 feet, and just we expand it a little bit every year.
Robyn, where's the butterfly garden in Babylon?
It is right on Park Avenue.
Park Avenue.
We're losing her. Yeah.
You back?
I was
You
just
gone?
wondering if there were any Indian heritage people who
By
had
tennis courts.
from this area that would also be connected to the earth more. Or do we know? I guess it's just more out east about the Indians.
Maybe. I don't know. If you look at the names of the creeks, you've got Naguntatag, Sumpwams, Santapog. Certainly there's Indian influence on the creek naming.
And on the street naming also.
Yeah.
The
100%.
towns
Yeah.
naming, you know.
Robyn, I'm sorry, excuse me. When you said that the butterfly farm is on Park Avenue, is that part of Southern's Pond?
It's close. It's by the Southern Pond, but further south than there, right where the tennis courts are.
Right.
Park Avenue, just before the grade school.
That's in there.
Yeah, there's like a
I walked there a long
triangular.
time, so I never
There's
knew
a
there was a
triangular
butterfly.
piece. Yeah, you probably drive right past there. It's driving right over the Carls River when you go right on Park Avenue.
Okay, great. And
So
the north side or the south side?
it's on the north side of the street.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathleen, did I forget anything from the Earth Focus Group that you remember?
No, I think we
Yeah, okay.
it's,
I'm thinking that for sure that we would want the Earth Focus Group to listen to this presentation at least. And
absolutely, yeah.
and then maybe at some point, Robyn, we can invite you and, you know, have a fuller conversation about what we could do.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I'm always I'm always available.
Okay.
So I did want to if just before we wrap up, I wanted to invite you all because it would be great to have a table from you guys at our oyster ball that we have coming up. It's a big event that we have coming on September 14th. And it will be held, it's our annual fundraiser.
Mhm.
It's the only event we do during the year as a fundraiser. And this is our first year hosting the Oyster Ball. It will be honoring Suffolk County Executive Ed Romaine will be there. We're going to recognize his efforts to improve water quality, particularly with this, by getting this referendum on the ballot this year. It didn't pass last year to get on the ballot, so it's huge that it's on the ballot this year. And we'll be recognizing Senator Monica Martinez. She's from the Brentwood area, for her efforts to improve water quality out in the Great South Bay. So we'd love to have a table of the sisters at the event. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be tarot card reading and a lot of oysters. If you like oysters, this is a great event for it.
Okay, we'll see what we can do. Can you give us the information about the October speaker too? When that's
Yes.
now,
So the October speaker series will be held on Friday, October 18th at the View in Oakdale. And there's only seating for 100 people and they always sell out. So I will ask you to, are you guys all on our mailing list?
I am.
I'm not.
Okay.
I think I might have
So-
signed up.
When we put it out, just register right away.
Okay,
Because we have seating for 100 and it books out, particularly for the State of the Bay with Dr. Gobler. And it's free breakfast.
All right.
good.
It's sponsored by the Lessings Hospitality Group. And they always put out muffins and bagels and fresh fruit and orange juice and delicious coffee.
Mhm. Nice. That's
So we
wonderful.
will be hosting, that's October 18th. And then we will be hosting, we usually do them quarterly, but because of the timing of the State of the Bay, we always do it in October. We'll be hosting 2 weeks later, November 1st, another speaker series on the referendum.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, it's really important for us to get the message out as to why people should support this initiative. And we'll have the Nature Conservancy will be there. Representatives from Suffolk County will be there. Adrian Esposito from Citizens Campaign will be there. And Ryan Stanton from the Federation of Union of Labor will be there as our panelists. To talk, to inform people, to talk about why the initiative is important and why we need to get out on November 4th and vote for it.
Mhm.
So again, when you see the email come out for that one, register. Because they do fill up quick.
So do you have all of our emails, all of the people who are on this call?
I do. I don't think Robin has it.
Does anybody have any
Agree.
objection if we send?
Do I them?
No. It's okay for me.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I'll
fine.
gladly add you to our
Yeah.
mailing list then. That's perfect. Thank you.
okay.
Okay, I'll do that, Robin.
We promise we won't spam you and we won't sell your information.
Right, good.
But you will get newsletters from us
Good,
telling you about what we're doing.
terrific.
Terrific. This
Thank
was
you.
wonderful. I really learned a lot
Yes,
this evening.
Thank you very
Robin.
much.
yes.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to speak with you all.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Robin or comments or?
It was a really great presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, ladies, I wish you a lovely evening.
Thank you, you too.
Any
And I hope to see you at
blessings.
one of the speaker series or maybe at the Oyster Ball.
Okay.
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 Bye
Thank
now.
you, Robin.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Good night.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
You're out there, huh?
Kathleen, can you stay on for a second?
Okay. Is this
All right.
detention? What?
What? Detention, yeah. No, I mean, anybody
Have a
else? who
good
wants
night,
to stay on
everybody.
can. I'm sorry, Peggy just clicked off. I think we should bring this to the Earth Focus Group.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen to the whole presentation and see what we could do. I mean, even if we put in a couple of, if we can get, you know, people to put in a couple of those
Gardens.
rain swales, rain gardens, maybe some people from the garden would volunteer to help us, you know, if we had somebody who showed us what to do. And design it nicely. I think of that one little corner, you know, in the front of the mother house, in the corner, there's a whole bunch of trees over there. I wonder if that would be a spot, but I don't know.
Might be able to get the scouts involved too.
Yeah, Elizabeth.